The European Championship qualifiers consist of 10 groups of 5 or 6 teams. After this round is over, the top 2 from each group will be going on to Euro 2024. One thing that is different though is the fact that finishing third does not mean you are into the playoffs. In fact, the playoff spots have already been determined through teams who recently have won their Nations League group. Group A consists of Spain, Scotland, Norway, Georgia, and Cyprus. Spain are 3-time European champions. 2 of their successes were back-to-back between 2008 and 2012 during their famous golden generation. The other half of my blood hasn't impressed much in the Euros. Scotland reached 2 editions in the 90s and then had a drought that lasted until 2020, where yet again, they crashed out of the groups. Norway, though, hasn't shown anything better in all fairness. Their only appearance goes back to 2000, where they were barely eliminated because of a goal differential tiebreaker with a team that would no longer exist just 3 years later. But perhaps 2024 could see their return, especially now that the team features the Sex God and the Almighty God, who are both better than ever before.
But I'm afraid I've got some bad news.
Georgia has not made a single major international tournament. However, the new golden generation, led by star player Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, have shown glimpses of brilliance and have come closer to qualification with every campaign. It also helps that they won their Nations League group, which guarantees them a spot into the playoffs. Finally, there's Cyprus. Cyprus has never qualified for the Euros, however, they did come close to reaching the playoffs in 2016. But all I'm gonna say is, if you can't beat Bulgaria, you probably don't have a great chance of qualifying. After the first window, Scotland has surprisingly taken an early lead in the group. They defeated Cyprus 3-0 and then stunned Spain at Hampden Park thanks to 2 Scott McTominay goals. Luckily for Spain though, they still hold on to second after a comfortable win versus Norway. The rest of the field isn't too far off, with both Norway and Georgia grabbing a point from each other. Group B features the Netherlands, France, Ireland, Greece, and Gibraltar. The Netherlands have won the Euros once, back in 1988 when Marco van Basten was still banging in goals. France has won 2 tournaments themselves back in 1984 and 2000. With this current generation and pissed off Mbappe being the new masked LeBron, France will be aiming for a 3rd title in 2024. One of the most famous European Championship stories happened in 2004 when Greece did the impossible and won the competition. However, in recent years, the national team has declined significantly and hasn't qualified for the past 2 Euros. And if you thought that was bad, ho 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 ho. But in a domain of hopelessness is a gleaming light of optimism. Greece managed to win their Nations League group, confirming a spot into the playoffs. Ireland have made it to 3 Euros, with their most recent being back in 2016. With the momentum of a massive W in September 2022 and the sky-high potential of Evan Ferguson, the Irish will hope to return in 2024. Then there's Gibraltar, who has been a member of UEFA for just 6 years now. They've never won a qualifier, let alone qualified at all. But we could see flashes of the future in 18-year-old Nicolas Pozzo of Cadiz. With 2 matches played, France are at the top with 6 points. They kicked off their campaign by absolutely decimating the Dutch in just 20 minutes.
Like, bro, I don't want to see anymore. I don't want to see anymore, bro.
And then followed that up with a slim victory versus the Irish. Speaking of the Irish, while they've only played 1 game, they've kicked off very promisingly. Ireland held France scoreless throughout the first half and only conceded through a Pavard banger. If the Irish can continue to put up fights like this, Group B could get really interesting. Don't get too excited right now, Greeks, but your nation is currently sitting second with the game in hand. Right behind them is the Netherlands, who bounced back after defeating Gibraltar 3-0. As for Gibraltar,
it's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good.
Group C gives us some fireworks, with Italy, the Euro 2020 champions, and England, the runners-up. Followed by them is Ukraine, North Macedonia, and Malta. Italy may be the masters at finding new ways to hilariously bottle World Cup qualification, but when it comes to the Euros, they seem to always show up no matter the overall quality of the squad. England has never won the European Championship, and I hope to God it stays that way until I die. The farthest the 3 Lions have gone was the final back in 2020, where they lost in a dreaded penalty shootout. Ukraine has qualified for the past 3 editions, with the most recent seeing their best finish of 8th. In the same tournament, we'd see North Macedonia feature for the first time ever. They hope to, for a 3rd straight time, screw with the Italians.
We like to troll. We like to go the night before one of their primaries. We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
Malta is the only nation in this group to have never featured in the tournament, and in 13 Euro qualification campaigns, they've won just 4 times. So far, nothing too crazy has occurred in Group C. England won their first 2 qualifiers and sit at the top. Italy are just behind them after bouncing back against Malta. Although one player many in the Italosphere have been hyping up is Matteo Retegui. In his first 2 caps, he scored twice. Retegui is originally from Argentina, however his maternal grandfather is Italian. Thus, the reason reason why he's able to play for Italy. The only other team to earn points in this window was North Macedonia, who defeated Malta 2-1. Group D gives us Croatia, Wales, Turkey, Armenia, and Latvia. Now, before I say anything more, are we trying to start a war here? Croatia has made the last 5 tournaments with their best finish coming in 2008 when they reached the quarterfinals. Wales didn't qualify for the Euros until 2016 where they shocked everyone finishing 3rd. They qualified again for 2020, but it will be interesting to see how this team fares now that Gareth Bale's retired. Turkey throughout the 2000s gave us some incredible dark horse performances, especially in 2008. In that tournament, they just barely missed out on the final after Philip Lahm called game right at the death. And since then, the dark horse title has been more of a Turkish ice cream trick for sports bettors than anything else. Armenia has never qualified for the Euros, but did come close to reaching 2012's edition. Latvia, though, have back in 2004. Despite them crashing out of the groups, their playoff spot to reach the tournament itself against Turkey is widely reminisced upon by many in the nation. Group D did not make us wait one bit for the geopolitical derby. Armenia took an early lead through an Ozan Kabak own goal. However, the Turks then made a comeback and acquired all 3 points. The other match that day was between Croatia and Wales. Aside from an early goal, Croatia dominated but were abysmal in their finishing, and it costed them, as right at the death, Wales snatched a point away with just their first shot on target. Both Croatia and Wales would go on to win their next matches and are now tied for first. Group B has Poland, the Czech Republic, Albania, Faroe Islands, and Moldova. Despite making it to multiple World Cups throughout the 70s and 80s, Poland didn't qualify for the Euros until 2008. In 2016, many saw them as a dark horse pick mainly because of Robert Lewandowski. Lewandowski only scored once throughout that entire tournament. But nonetheless, 2016 would be the Poles' best finish as they reached the quarterfinals. The Czechs have a pretty rich history when it comes to the Euros. As Czechoslovakia, they've won the whole thing in 1976. Then in their first tournament as the Czech Republic, they finished second just 20 years later. Albania's history, definitely not as much as the Czechs. Their only appearance was back in 2016 where they managed to be eliminated on a high note after beating Romania. Oh, by the way, speaking of Euro 2016, in that qualifying campaign, we witnessed UEFA trying to start another Balkan war. As for the Faroe Islands and Moldova, they both haven't even come close to ever qualifying. The Czechs currently hold onto first place in the group after an impressive victory against Poland followed by a draw with Moldova. For the Polish, losing to the Czechs was bad enough. But then you remember, recent corruption has led to their Eurovision entry being an aggressively mid song instead of a guaranteed top 10. Well done, TVP. But don't lose all hope just yet, Poles, because Charlotte, North Carolina is here to heal you for the time being. Looking at the table again, while it may be just 2 games, Moldova are currently 3rd with 2 points. Group F has Belgium, Austria, Sweden, Azerbaijan, and Estonia. Despite everything we've heard about the golden generation of the 2010s, Belgium's best finish in the Euros goes all the way back to 1980 when they were runners-up. By the way, Belgium legacy of failures, coming soon. When? Soon. Austria has only qualified for 3 tournaments, with their best finish coming in 2020 when they reached the round of 16. However, we can never forget the wasted potential of 2016. Sweden's best finish comes in 1992 when they reached the semis of a tournament they hosted. Since then, they've looked quite shit. Azerbaijan and Estonia have both never qualified. However, Estonia came quite close back in 2012 when they reached the playoffs. Austria have started well and been rewarded with the #1 spot after 2 matches played. That being said, there was a scare against Estonia at home. Romelu Lukaku is either in qualification form or in a joker arc. In Belgium's first qualifier, he scored a hat-trick against Sweden, and as a result, they are now second with the game in hand. Sweden is the remaining nation to have scored points in this group after they bounced back and mauled Azerbaijan 5-0 at home. Group G, we have the Balkans plus Lithuania. Hungary, as mentioned before on the channel, were a force to be reckoned with in the mid-1900s. Their best finish was 3rd place back in 1964. Nowadays, they're not as good as before, but are always a team to look out for, especially with how well they performed in Euro 2020's Group of Death and the most recent Nations League. As Yugoslavia, Serbia experienced 2 runners-up finishes in 1960 and 1968. However, as an independent nation, they have yet to qualify even once for the tournament. If you'd like to learn more about Serbia's awful records at tournaments, just watch this video by Isaac. But with a talented core consisting of Mitrovic, Vlahovic, and Milinkovic-Savic, we might finally see them in the Euros. Especially as they did win their Nations League group and have a guaranteed spot in the playoffs. Montenegro has never qualified, but did come very close in 2012, when an iconic last-minute goal from Andrea Della Basic against England would send the Montenegrins to the playoffs. The Euros have seen Bulgaria twice, and in both tournaments they were sent home in the groups. Since then, the national team has fallen off a cliff. And then there's Lithuania. They've never qualified ever. Currently, we have Serbia in first with 2 wins. Not far behind them is Hungary, who still have a game in hand. Keep an eye on Dominik Szoboszlai throughout the qualifiers, by the way. He's always been a menace for Hungary, but his recent performance against Bulgaria is signaling an awakening beyond comprehension. Montenegro has also started decently well. They're currently third after also beating Bulgaria. Group H gives us Denmark, Finland, Slovenia, Kazakhstan, Northern Ireland, and San Marino. Denmark has one title dating back to 1992. After 80 years of anguish, the Finnish national team finally stopped being a factory of sadness and qualified for their first major tournament in 2020. Slovenia hasn't qualified for the Euro since 2000, surprisingly enough. However, with Benjamin Šeško and a couple other good players, we could see the country's return this year. Kazakhstan has never qualified for the Euros, but are on the up as of late. They won their Nations League group and promoted to League B, confirming at least playoffs. Take me back to the good old days when I had not a single care in the world and would sing Will Griggs on Fire. Northern Ireland's only appearance was back in 2016 when they reached the last 16. Finally, there's San Marino. In Euro qualifiers, they've won 0, drawn 1, and lost 75. That being said, watch out for them this year. There are noticeably small improvements happening. Back in August of last year, the under-19s actually defeated Gibraltar's U19s 4-0. The future is bright. Group H began with a match between Kazakhstan and Slovenia, and in just 23 minutes, the Kazakhs shocked everyone and took the lead. Unfortunately for the underdogs, they would not be able to hold on, and Slovenia scored 2 unanswered. Later that day, we had Denmark defeat Finland thanks to a Højlund hat-trick. And finally, Northern Ireland won 2-0 versus San Marino. Then came match day 2. Denmark scored 2 early goals against Kazakhstan. However, this time, it was the Hawks' turn to make a comeback. First was a penalty in the 73rd minute, then a belter from Askat Tajibergen in the 86th minute. Finally, 3 minutes later, Astana Arena exploded in exhilaration and disbelief as Kazakhstan completed the comeback and snatched away 3 points from the Danish. Denmark are currently ranked 18th in the world, mind you, and Kazakhstan 115th. 3 hours later, we'd witness Slovenia versus San Marino. And to everyone's surprise, the Minnows were putting up a great fight against Slovenia. They even held them to a goalless first half. Perhaps, just today, we might finally witness history in the making.
Beautifully moved, Zykes with the shot!
You gotta be fucking kidding me. As it stands, Slovenia are currently first in the group with 6 points. Then from 2nd to 5th, everyone has 3 points respectively, while San Marino are bottom because the football gods do not want to see this team ever be happy. Group I has Switzerland, Israel, Romania, Kosovo, Belarus, and Andorra. Switzerland finally broke the last 16 curse and reached the quarters of the European Championship in 2020. Israel has never played in the Euros, but their future is starting to look bright with their U19s reaching the final last year. It especially helps that they're guaranteed a playoff spot. Romania has qualified for 5 tournaments, with their latest being back in 2016. Their best finish, though, came in the 2000 edition when they reached the quarters. Kosovo, since becoming a member of UEFA, has impressed a lot. In their first qualification campaign, they just missed out after advancing to the playoffs, which really makes both Andorra and Belarus look awful considering how many more attempts they've both had to qualify. The Swiss are currently taking care of business in Group I, having won 2 of 2. But right behind them is Romania, who for once aren't bottling in qualification. They managed victories against both Andorra and Belarus to start their campaign. Meanwhile, everyone else has only managed draws at best. Finally, there is Group J, which has Portugal, Bosnia, Iceland, Luxembourg, Slovakia, and Liechtenstein. Portugal has been known to have very successful Euro campaigns. In their first 8 tournaments, they finished no lower than 7th. And then finally, after some shortcomings, they achieved the ultimate glory in 2016. Bosnia has never qualified for the Euros, and even more painfully, they've fallen short in the last 3 straight qualification playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, they are once again guaranteed a spot. I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or not at this point though. Iceland's first ever tournament was back in Euro 2016, where a formidable defense helped them reach the quarterfinals. Luxembourg may be small and haven't come even close to qualifying for the Euros, but in the last year or so, this young core has been packing the punches. Do not sleep on Luxembourg is all I'm going to say. Slovakia has featured in the last 2 European Championships, with one run reaching the round of 16 in 2016. And finally, there's Liechtenstein. Don't have hope. Not even the might of Sisyphus can do anything here. Portugal are tearing it apart already in their qualification group. Meanwhile, it's already a pretty close battle for second that could get really interesting going into June. Slovakia hold the other qualification spot for now with 4 points. They drew with Luxembourg and then defeated Bosnia. Bosnia are just behind them after a comfortable victory against Iceland. Finally, Iceland themselves bounced back after doing a sub-zero head rip fatality on Liechtenstein. Group A from the very start was exciting due to the many dark horses present, and we didn't even have to wait that long for chaos, as in the last window, Scotland shocked the passing merchants 2-0 in Glasgow. With that result, Scotland would start the June window top of the group. Not far behind them was Spain, but because of the Nations League, they would not play a single qualifier in June, which left us with the remaining nations Georgia, Norway, and Cyprus, all in need of points. The Robot Initiative would finally be able to host their first home match of the campaign. This one would be against Scotland, and Norway did quite well as Holland scored a penalty in the 61st minute. Unfortunately, expansions still need to be made in the Robot Initiative because Norway's defense is absolute dog shit. Scotland, after 2 late goals from Lyndon Dykes and Kenny McLean, earn another 3 points in their charge for a second straight European Championship qualification. Scotland then scored another 2 goals in their next qualifier versus Georgia to maintain their winning streak. Norway, on the other hand, did manage a win later on in the window after they defeated Cyprus 3-1 at home. Georgia also earned their first victory of the campaign against Cyprus thanks to a late goal from Zeriko Davitashvili. And if you thought Georgia was promising already, just go and look at their U21 Euros campaign right now. So far, and the groups haven't finished yet, but they've beat Portugal 2-0 and they've drawn with Belgium. So after the June window, Group A looks very interesting. Scotland has a commanding lead with 4 wins and an impressive 9 goals scored. Georgia and Norway are tied on points, but the Georgians have a better goal difference, so they sit in the second automatic qualification spot. They also have a game in hand. It is against Spain though, but they have shown fight against Spain. Then there's Cyprus.
It's not looking good, Bev. It's not looking good.
Group B wasn't too much of a shock going into the June window. The Talent Factory had 2 of 2 wins as expected, while the Greeks and the Dutch bullied Gibraltar for its lunch money. The French continued their winning ways after a 3-0 win in Gibraltar and then a 1-0 win versus Greece. Not to mention Mbappe, after his goal against the Greeks, is now just 1 goal away from tying Michel Platini in France's all-time top scorers list. That would put him 4th in the list. He's 24. Now, even though the Greeks lost to the French, their defense still did a great job away from home. And in the match prior, they got a massive victory against the Irish. As opposed to Greece's start, Ireland's has been a little rocky. However, after their loss to the Greeks, they too would beat Gibraltar. At the end of the June window, France still remain at the top, having won 4 of 4. Greece, with the game in hand, sit in the second qualification spot. They've done well so far and could be eyeing their first major tournament since 2014. But the Dutch, who didn't play a single qualifier in this window due to the Nations League, might have a few objections to that. Group C before June was also pretty standard, with England in the lead. Now, in the last video, I angered a couple English people because I simply glossed over their result against Italy. Like, okay, it's the first time you won in Italy since 1961. Jesus, no wonder you guys get knocked out so much if this is how you think. Jokes aside, England would continue to pull away throughout this window after they beat Malta 4-0. Then, unlike English breakfast, which is baked in the sun for 10 minutes, the English properly cooked North Macedonia. Oh, by the way, Saka hat-trick, Starboy propaganda. North Macedonians, you may have been humiliated, but at least you got a 2-0 win against Ukraine. I mean, what a goal from Elmas. Oh wait, never mind. You bottled the lead in 5 minutes and then gave up the winner in the 83rd minute. Ukraine didn't have the best start to their campaign, but did well to recover in this window. Alongside a comeback against North Macedonia, they narrowly beat Malta to earn 6 of 6 points. Group C is still led by England, but now Ukraine, with the game in hand, are in second. North Macedonia were so bad this window that Italy, who were busy with the Nations League, still are above them. Group D before June had a tie between Croatia and Wales. And let me just get this out of the way for the 4th time so I don't have to worry about it. Due to the Nations League, Croatia would not play a single qualifier in this window. But Wales did, and they started brilliantly at home with an early goal versus Armenia. However, the Welsh defense had the stability, that of a stick of pocky, and they conceded 3 unanswered and ended up losing 4-2 to the 97th ranked Armenians at home. 2 of those Armenian goals came from a man by the name of Grant Leon Ranos, a German-born Armenian who is a 19-year-old prospect who currently plays for Mönchengladbach. With those 2 goals though, his overall tally is now 4 goals in 3 caps, which is really impressive. Armenia then went on to cap off an impressive window with a last-minute goal versus Latvia at home to earn 6 of 6 points. Another nation who had a fantastic window was Turkey. The Turkish went 2-0 up early on against Latvia, choked because they're Turkey, but then in record time, the world's expectations dropped for the team, which has a direct correlation to the team turning into prime 2000s Turkey, and they steal a win in Latvia. Then to finish June, the Turkish tamed the Dragons and won 2-0. So after the June window, Turkey are now group leaders with their, great friends, Armenia, who are 3 points behind them with the game in hand. You have no idea how excited I am. for this match. And then there was Wales, who were supposedly favorites to qualify, who sit in 4th with no games in hand. Perhaps we're starting to see the effects of the post-Gareth Bale era? Group E before June was looking pretty close, with the Czech Republic in the lead 1 point above Poland. The Czechs only played 1 game in June, and they won 3-0. Poland also had just 1 game to play. Theirs was in Moldova. The Poles, now led by Fernando Santos, scored 2 early goals through Arkadiusz Milik and Robert Lewandowski. Then the second half, Poland's midfield makes a mistake and Moldova capitalize. Later on, the midfield makes the same mistake and Moldova score their equalizer. Then in the 85th minute, Moldova's Vladislav Boboglo heads in a historic winner. Moldova, who are ranked 171st in the world, lower than the likes of St. Lucia and Fiji, stun 23rd ranked in the world Poland. Not to mention, it's their first victory in a qualifier since they beat Andorra in 2019. Another country who made a statement in this window was Albania. After a 1-0 loss to Swiderski FC in the last window, the Albanians bounced back with 2 straight victories against Moldova and the Faroe Islands, which now sees them jump from bottom to 2nd in the group, just a point behind the Czechs. Right behind them is Moldova with 5 points after 4 games. The last time they scored that many points was back in Euro 2012 qualifiers. Meanwhile, sitting in 4th with a game in hand is Poland, who have a lot of questions that need answers soon. Group F was led by the Austrians, who started well and won their first 2 games. Their next game was against Belgium, who had just played 1 match, where Lukaku declared himself as CEO of IKEA. However, nothing could separate the 2 teams in this match as they drew 1-1. By the way, this is the first time in this video that a draw has been mentioned. Here's the second. After their draw though, both Belgium and Austria would bounce back as they both won their respective matches, which now leaves us with a pretty close battle for the lead after June. Austria are 3 points clear, but second place Belgium still have a game in hand, and they play Azerbaijan, so they'll definitely be tied for the lead after that. But quick shouts to Austria, because under Ralf Rangnick, this team has looked really solid. They had a pretty bad stretch last year, but their last 6 games have seen them win 5 times. Sweden, on the other hand, are just hanging in there in 3rd after playing just 1 qualifier in June. They'll really need to pick up the pace, otherwise it'll be a 2nd straight tournament that they miss. Serbia had an early lead going into June, with Hungary and Montenegro just behind them. The Serbians only played 1 qualifier in this window, where they had to pull a last-minute equalizer out of their asses against Bulgaria. The Bulgarians also drew with Lithuania, which earned them 2 points for the month. Another draw occurred in the match between Montenegro and Hungary. Actually, the Hungarians were the only team in the group to win this month. So now looking at Group G, Hungary, thanks to goal difference, have taken the lead away from Serbia, while Montenegro is just 3 points below the automatic qualification spot. Group H is the first time where we see every team has played twice before June. Slovenia was the surprise group leader, and they can thank Kazakhstan's comeback win against Denmark for that. And aside from San Marino, everyone else had at least 3 points. Slovenia kicked off June in Finland, where they lost 2-0, conceding to Venezia's Joao Poyanpalo and Oliver Antman. Unironically, this was probably the best piece of media revolving around Antman. Finland, though, had a really good June window, as they followed that win up with a 6-0 thumping of San Marino. Kazakhstan was another team that was doing really well this month, as they've been exceeding expectations. They got a solid win versus San Marino, and then with a dazzling solo goal, the Kazakhs stole a win in Belfast. Another thing to point out about Kazakhstan is that their fans have been fantastic. They've been going to every game, home and away, and they've always been the loudest ones. Meanwhile, there's Denmark, and they've really fallen off. I thought the World Cup was just a bit of a one-off type thing, but they have been severely underwhelming in a group that they should be dominating, honestly. Denmark managed to beat Northern Ireland 1-0, but then could only conjure up a draw with Slovenia. So with all those results finished in June, Finland are now the team at the top of the table, with Kazakhstan just a whisker from them. Group I before June saw the lead be shared by both Switzerland and Romania. Switzerland started June with a 2-1 win versus Andorra. However, Romania hit their first speed bump and drew in Kosovo. Then the two would play each other just a few days later. Switzerland scored 2 first-half goals through Zeki Amdouni, but just when they had everything in the bag, Romania pull a proper FM moment and score 2 goals back-to-back in the 89th minute and the 2nd minute of stoppage time. This result opened the door for a team on the rise like Israel to correct the mistakes they made last time. Well, they almost did it against Belarus, but luckily 2 last-minute goals stole them the win. They then followed that winning performance with another against Andorra. The remaining nation to collect some points was Belarus, as they beat Kosovo in Budapest. Fun fact, by the way, due to the war, the Belarusian national team hasn't actually played in Belarus since late 2021. But after the June window, Switzerland, despite a little hiccup, hold on to first place. Romania are just 2 points behind them, and Israel have climbed up to third, just 1 point from the automatic qualification spot. Finally, we had Group J, where most of the attention would be on the battle for second, as Portugal would pull away this month. The Portuguese beat Bosnia, and then a last-minute goal from Ronaldo gave them a perfect window. Second place Slovakia did well to hold on to their position as well after beating Iceland and Liechtenstein. And just hanging in there is Luxembourg, who collected 3 points from Liechtenstein and Bosnia respectively. Entering the September window, Scotland had a commanding lead in Group A. The Scots only played Cyprus this month and earned an easy 3 points to get that much closer to qualifying for Euro 2024, which leaves us looking at the battle for second between everyone besides Cyprus. Georgia and Norway were tied on points, however Georgia still had a game in hand. Right below them though was Spain, who had 2 games in hand. Georgia was keen on maintaining their spot against Spain at home. However, the Spaniards had other thoughts and scored 7 past the Georgians in their own backyard. And see this guy here? That's Lamine Yamal, and he just scored for Spain at 16 years old. Spain continued this insane goal-scoring form with 6 against poor old Cyprus to finish the window with all 6 points. Meanwhile, the Georgians were schooled by an 18-year-old Antonio Nusa in Oslo. The winger created 2 assists for Erling Haaland and Martin Ødegaard as Norway cruised to a huge 2-1 win. So as it stands, Scotland is 1 more win away from qualifying for the tournament. They could have qualified this month, but Georgia lost to Norway. Spain jump into second, and they still have another game in hand, which is definitely not what Erling Haaland and Norway want to see, as they have no way of advancing to the playoffs. If Norwegians want to have any chance of qualifying, they have to beat Spain next month. One nation that does have a way into the playoffs is Georgia, so even though this window was one to forget, not all hope is lost. Same can't be said about Cyprus though, who still have 0 points. In Group B, France was dominating, having not conceded a single goal so far. Their only qualifier this month was against Ireland, where Aurelio Tchouameni whipped out a firecracker from outside the box. The French would end up winning 2-0. If missing generational striker Evan Ferguson wasn't bad enough, the Irish also had to play the Dutch in this window. Things started well though, as Ireland converted a penalty in the 5th minute, but eventually the soul-crushing fate of reality set in and Ireland lost 2-1. The Netherlands had one other game against Greece where they laid down the law and won 3-0. Nonetheless, Greece bounced back with a 5-0 takedown of Gibraltar, who still have 0 points. As it stands, France remain undefeated and unbreakable, at least in qualifiers, while the battle for the other automatic spot between the Dutch and the Greeks is getting close. Even though the Netherlands have a game in hand, they will have to play Greece in the next window, away from home. Meanwhile, sitting in 4th is Ireland, whose golden generation had their fans dream for about 3 nanoseconds before shitting the bed. Group C, England was having a comfy little slumber at the top, while Ukraine, Italy, and North Macedonia all were bickering with one another. Ukraine started this window by grabbing a big point against an underwhelming English side. Then a few hours later, North Macedonia would play Italy. Before this window though, North Macedonia's national team was in shambles. Firstly, this was the pitch on match day. Also, their head coach was rumored to be sacked after the embarrassment in Manchester, but ultimately nothing happened. It doesn't stop there, however, as multiple key players lacked fitness because they weren't even at a club. And on top of all this, due to poor relations with the coach, Captain Stefan Ristovski straight up refused to be called up. And Italy still couldn't beat them. This is truly the gift that keeps on giving. The two would go on to end their windows with a win each though. Italy defeated Ukraine 2-1 and then North Macedonia scraped past Malta 2-0. If Group C wasn't already looking close, now we have 3 teams tied for second with 7 points. Italy has a game in hand though, but yeah. One really good matchup you'll want to look out for next month is Ukraine versus North Macedonia. This matchup is ginormous for both teams looking to qualify. For once, I can say something different to introduce a group. Group D was looking really close before this window. Turkey have done well so far and find themselves group leaders. Their best friends Armenia are surprising many in this qualification campaign and are just 3 points behind with a game in hand. However, you can't count out Croatia, who had 2 games in hand. The window began with Croatia taking one of those games and slapping the ever-living shit out of Latvia. Then, finally, we got to witness the long-awaited geopolitical top-of-the-table clash between Armenia and Turkey. And even before kickoff, things were off to an insane start as the Armenian anthem could not even be heard due to Turkish fans whistling. While players were trying to kill each other and fans were throwing shit on the pitch.
Oh my God! What in the... Mama, come get it! Oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord, grab the girl hand. Oh Lord, you okay?
Turkey and Armenia were creating many chances. Turkey had the best of the chances in the first half, but they were either stopped by the Armenian keeper or their own players. And thanks to Turkey's midfield being non-existent for whatever reason, it meant Armenia had so much space to work with. If that wasn't bad enough, Turkey's defense was making more mistakes than Aaron Hologramsdale, and Armenia capitalized in the 49th minute. Nonetheless, Turkey kept seeking more opportunities throughout the second half, and then finally, after a little luck, scored a late equalizer. And so, in the end, after an intense match between two nations that absolutely fucking hate each other, it ends with both sharing points. For Turkish fans, this was an embarrassment, but for Armenian fans, they were more than happy to take a point away. Armenia's fortunes weren't as great in their next qualifier at home though, as they lost 1-0 to Croatia. Meanwhile, Wales, who have been in an identity crisis since Bale's retirement, earned their second victory of the campaign against Latvia. Things are getting even more interesting in Group D. Croatia with the game in hand and Turkey are tied for the top, and don't think the top of the table clashes are over because these two face each other next month. 3 points behind them are Armenia and Wales, who are both tied with 7 points. Latvia may have made history in the Basketball World Cup, but it's the complete opposite in football as they have now been officially eliminated. Another group that was pretty tight going into September was Group E. Czech Republic was placed first, but breathing down their necks was Albania. This month the two played in a top of the table clash where it would end 1-1. Moldova had just come off shocking everyone by beating Poland and were placed third. They continue their impressive campaign with a 1-0 win away in the Faroe Islands. Speaking of fourth place Poland, they were in dire need of a good window. Poland kicked off September by playing the Faroe Islands, and they can thank some Faroese misfortune for bailing them out. Albania awaited them next, and the Eagles stunned Poland 2-0 through one of the best goals scored in qualifiers so far from Yasir Asani, and another strike later in the 62nd minute from Mirlin Daku. This win for Albania takes them to the top as they eye a return to the Euros for the first time in nearly 8 years. However, the Czech Republic still have a game in hand, and right behind them is Moldova, who have nothing to lose in the fight for their first ever European Championship berth, while Poland still sit fourth as they continue to underwhelm to magnificent lengths. Fernando Santos was the man behind these recent disaster classes and insisted he would not resign. Well, that's not really up to you now, is it? Group F had Austria as the surprise leaders going into September. Belgium with a game in hand were 3 points behind, and Sweden were just hanging in there. The Red Devils had a pretty easy window as they beat both Azerbaijan and Estonia. Sweden, at this point of the stage, had been quite underwhelming and needed to get things up and running, especially if they wanted to keep their hopes alive. They beat Estonia 5-0, but then a huge dent was put in their chances after losing 3-1 at home to Austria. With the Swedes 7 points behind second place Austria, it may very well be Sweden. Meanwhile, Belgium and Austria are getting much closer to clinching a berth to Euro 2024. Group G's top spot was shared by Hungary and Serbia going into September. The two played each other in Belgrade, where Serbia went 1-0 up thanks to a Hungarian own goal. But then Hungary snapped back with 2 goals back-to-back in the 34th and 36th to take all 3 points. Not exactly the result the Serbs wanted, but they did well to rebound as Alexander Mitrovic scored a hat-trick against Lithuania. Montenegro were just 3 points off a qualification spot, and with games against Lithuania and Bulgaria, this was a perfect opportunity to sneak in. 144th ranked in the world, Lithuania didn't just stand there and die, however, as they drew first blood in the 71st minute. But no need to fear Montenegrins, as Nikola Krstic scores the equalizer 7 minutes later. Then in the 89th minute, Stefan Savic completes the comeback. But Lithuania refused to die, and in the 4th minute of stoppage time, Fedor Cernic sends a beauty into the net. The game ends 2-2, and at the death, Montenegro blow a massive opportunity. They did manage to beat Bulgaria in another very dramatic match, but had the Montenegrins not let it slip, they could have been top of the group. Instead, though, they find themselves third, 2 points below Hungary and Serbia, who are tied at the top with 10 points each. Group H is easily the most entertaining of them all. Between first place Finland and 4th place Slovenia is just 2 points, and only Kazakhstan is able to advance to the playoffs, which will only see this group get more intense with every passing month. Group leaders Finland started their September with a match in Kazakhstan. Quantumania was so ass and the epitome of everything wrong with Marvel currently, so Ant-Man decided to transcend the planes of reality to redeem himself.
Thank you, Spider-Man!
Kazakhstan didn't let that result ruin their mood though. Against Northern Ireland, they did what they do best, score nothing but insane goals to overcome the odds. Denmark had a pretty underwhelming campaign up to this point. However, the Danes did well this window to breathe new life into their campaign. Denmark beat San Marino 4-0 thanks to a hat-trick of assists from Christian iOS Eriksson, and then they followed that up with a 1-0 win against Nordic rivals Finland to earn all 6 points. Another team to earn all 6 points this window was Slovenia. They beat Northern Ireland 4-2 and then San Marino 4-0. With those two wins, it now sees Slovenia at the top of Group H after the September window. Not only is this great for the team's hopes of qualifying, this also raises hopes and spirits of a nation that just suffered its worst ever natural disaster a month ago. Tied with them though is the other team that had a perfect window in Denmark, while Finland and Kazakhstan are just 1 point behind them. With just 2 windows to go, this group you will want to keep an eye on. Group I saw a battle for the top spot between Switzerland, Romania, and Israel. Switzerland had a visit to Kosovo to begin their September, and in the 14th minute, Remo Freuler sneaks a ball into the net. However, underdogs Kosovo take advantage of the Swiss falling asleep in the back, and Vedat Muriqi equalizes. 79 minutes played now, Remo Freuler with another strike, and with help of Amir Rahmani, Switzerland regained their lead. But just when you thought the Swiss had 3 points in the bag, Kosovo plays some beautiful football in the box and equalized with seconds left to play. Yet another team lets it slip this window while Kosovo give themselves a lifeline. Switzerland though did manage to finish the window with a win as they beat Andorra in comfortable fashion. Kosovo on the other hand had a trip to Bucharest. Now, I didn't really pay attention to this match, but the moment I saw this status on Google, I knew exactly what happened. And what did happen, you may ask? Well, if you didn't know, in the Balkans, everyone hates each other. And before the match, there was a hateful banner held up by Romanian ultras saying Kosovo is Serbia, while many others in the stadium were chanting Serbia, Serbia. Kosovan players refused to play unless the banner was taken down, but the weirdo ultras refused to take it down. So the match was suspended for a bit. Eventually, players returned to the pitch and Romania would go on to win 2-0. Romania had one other match this window against Israel where the two shared points. Israel played Belarus in this window, and just like the last encounter, they left it to the final minutes to score a winner. As it stands, the points have increased between the top 3, but it's still the same difference. Switzerland and Romania hold on to the 2 qualification spots while Israel is just below them. Israel is able to advance through the playoffs, so even if they don't qualify automatically, there's another avenue. And a quick shout out to Andorran Ildefons Lima, who officially retired at the age of 43. He's the oldest player to appear in a Euro qualifier and also has the longest international career at 26 years. Finally, we have Group J, where Portugal has, as expected, dominated. Slovakia have done well to keep up, however, as they're also unbeaten so far. Then there's Luxembourg, who over just a decade ago were 148th in the world. For the longest time, they have been one of the oldest national teams to have not qualified for a major tournament. That could finally change, however, especially after their 3-1 triumph against Iceland to begin the month. But then they had to face Portugal, and I'm not really sure why, but every time Luxembourg face Portugal, no matter how much they've improved, their defense becomes the equivalent of Ashley Madison's security before 2015. Portugal, by the way, continued their impressive streak under Roberto Martinez, but don't get too excited, Portuguese fans. Belgians have seen this exact same picture numerous times. Slovakia may have suffered their first defeat, but fortunately for them, they were able to beat up on Liechtenstein. They scored 3 within the first 6 minutes and then probably felt bad afterwards. Bosnia and Herzegovina also beat Liechtenstein, but a loss to Iceland sees their chances of automatically qualifying dwindle. Looking at the table now, Portugal has extended its lead at the top. Slovakia hold on to second, and despite having a -9 goal differential, Luxembourg is just 3 points behind them. Starting in Group A, Scotland were just 1 win away from qualifying for Euro 2024. Spain spoiled the party though, beating the Scots 2-0 in Seville. However, 3 days later, La Roja did a massive favour for the Scottish after just beating Norway. This result means Spain and Scotland have officially qualified for the Euros, while Holland and the Norwegians are officially eliminated. Even though Georgia can't qualify directly anymore, they still have a chance through the playoffs as reward for winning their Nations League group. Oh, and Cyprus still have 0 points, by the way. France needed 1 more win to qualify, and Kylian Mbappe, with some spectacular goals, single-handedly punches the national team's ticket to Germany. So that left us with just 1 more automatic spot to clinch between the Netherlands and Greece. The Greeks may have had the upper hand with goal difference, but the Dutch still had a game in hand. Nevertheless, we only had to wait 3 days to see a battle between these two. The Dutch were awarded an early penalty, but Wout Weghorst could not convert. Orange continued to apply the pressure, but with the Greeks trying to play out a draw, the Netherlands found it nearly impossible to score. But then late into the match, another Greek gets clumsy in the box, and this time through Virgil van Dijk, the Netherlands converted the spot. With that result, it means the Dutch, with 2 more games to go, are in full control of their destiny. And before you even consider the thought of them slipping up, the Netherlands' last 2 games are Ireland at home and Gibraltar away. way. Not to mention, the Greeks still have to play France at home. That said, Greece is still assured a spot in the playoffs as they did win their Nations League group. England have a commanding lead at the top of Group C, so we'll get a closer look into the battle for second. From second to fourth, there was a three-way tie between Italy, Ukraine, and North Macedonia. Ukraine and North Macedonia played each other this month, and the Ukrainians were victors in a close game. Italy then started their window by taking down Malta 4-0. However, they lost 3-1 to the English in their second game. With that result, however, England have claimed their spot in the homecoming dance. Meanwhile, Ukraine earned their second victory in Malta after an early scare. This now sees the Ukrainians with the advantage on points and the almost certain elimination of North Macedonia. The last automatic qualification spot will be decided by a duel between them and Ukraine. Italy have a cushion to rely upon thanks to their Nations League group win, but Ukraine need to get a result as they are guaranteed nothing. Croatia had a slightly advantage as Group D leaders, but absolutely the bed this month. First, they lost to Turkey, and then produced one of the worst performances I have seen from a Croatian side in a while against Wales, and they lost 2-0. The Welsh have seemingly gotten their back together though, and more importantly, at the right time. Armenia, on the other hand, are going in the wrong direction, as a loss to Latvia has put a massive dent in their hopes. Turkey, for once, didn't bottle a grand opportunity, and along with their triumph in Croatia, they defeated Latvia to officially qualify for Euro 2024. With Croatia's disaster class of in October, the battle for second is still very close. Fourth place Armenia's last two games are against Wales and Croatia. They will have to win both in order to qualify. Croatia, I'd still say, have the better chance of going through despite their position because their other game is in Latvia, while Wales have to play Turkey at home. Either way, the final day for Group D will be super entertaining. Group E saw Albania with a 3-point lead above the Czech Republic, who had a game in hand. That game became completely irrelevant, however, as the Albanians comfortably defeated the Czechs 3-0. This result opened opportunity for two other parties down in third and fourth: Moldova and Poland. The Polish started October with a 2-0 win away in the Faroe Islands. Moldova only had one game this month, and that was against Poland. And the unlikely Cinderella story continued as the Moldovans took an early lead. However, the goal was cancelled out early into the second half by Karol Suderski of the 10-time MLS champions Charlotte FC. The game went on to finish 1-1, and the opportunity to take second from the Czechs went dry. With two more games to go, Albania can pretty much qualify with one more win. The second automatic spot is where things get pretty interesting. To start their November, the second place Czechs will travel to Warsaw to play third place Poland. This more than likely decides who the other team that directly qualifies is. However, if the game ends in a draw, it gives Moldova a huge opportunity to hop in if they can win at least one of their last two games.
What in the actual fuck?
Group F saw Belgium and Austria seal their spots in the Euros after the two won one of their matches this month. However, most of the headlines for this group were talking about Belgium versus Sweden, which had to be abandoned due to a terrorist attack. Group G started October with yet another top-of-the-table clash between Hungary and Serbia. Hungary took the lead in the 20th minute through a quick counter. However, Serbia responded on a corner just 13 minutes later. Just moments later, though, Roland Salai scores an absolute beauty, and Hungary hold on to defeat Serbia once again. The Hungarians then grabbed one more point away in Lithuania, while Serbia bounced back and defeated Montenegro to widen the gap between the two. Now looking at the table, Hungary needs just one more point to directly qualify. Second place Serbia can also qualify with a single point. However, if they lose their only game of the next window, this gives Montenegro a slim chance of qualifying if they can win out the rest of their fixtures. However, one of those matches is against Hungary, away from home. So it ain't looking good. Fans of the top four teams in Group H have a collective heart rate of about 500 beats per second. Slovenia and Denmark were just holding on to the two automatic spots as Finland and Kazakhstan breathed down their necks. To start October, Slovenia took down Finland as Benjamin Šeško grabbed his third and fourth of the campaign, while Denmark got some needed revenge against the Kazakhs at home. These results widened the gap between those who were in and who weren't. What followed was a battle between the two under the cut line. Finland took an early lead through Robert Taylor, but then the Kazakhs, like they did against Denmark, make a dramatic comeback and snatch all 3 points away. Sweet, sweet revenge for the Kazakhs. Hours later, Slovenia, through a single goal against Northern Ireland, hold on to their lead at the top. Denmark took a trip to San Marino, and after a slight struggle to begin, Rasmus Højlund found the breakthrough. But then on the hour mark, the San Marinis have a corner, and do not scratch your eyes, San Marino has equalized against Denmark. This is it. This is the moment San Marino creates history! So with 2 more matches to go, the gap between 2nd and 3rd is now 4 points, and Finland can no longer directly qualify after their 3rd straight loss. It should be mentioned though, while stakes are high, Finland and Kazakhstan are both guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. Kazakhstan because they won their Nations League group, and Finland because Nations League group winners Scotland have already qualified, which opens the door for the Finnish, who are the best 2nd place team in League B. That all said, no one wants to go through a playoff to advance if the opportunity to qualify directly is there. In the case of Kazakhstan, they will have to win out to have a chance at qualifying. Their last 2 fixtures are San Marino at home, easy enough, but then they have to play Slovenia away. However, they will also need either Denmark or Slovenia to either lose twice or lose and draw once. In this case, they have more control over Slovenia's result. Speaking of the 2 at the top, a single win for either sees them through to the Euros. Into October, the race for qualification in Group I was between the top 3 of Switzerland, Romania, and Israel. Israel, however, would not play a single game this window. Romania started with a match against Belarus where they could only manage a draw. However, they came back strong with a 4-0 beat down of Andorra. Switzerland also played Belarus, and vintage Shodan Shaqiri gave the Swiss an early lead. But then in the second half, Belarus scored not 1, not 2, but 3 unanswered by the 84th minute. However, in the 89th minute, Manuel Akanji gets one back for the Swiss, and then a minute later, Zeki Amdouni collects his 6th of the campaign to save Switzerland at the death. Looking at the table now, Romania and Switzerland look to seal the deal next month. Can't really say much about Israel, but Kosovo, after grabbing a win against Andorra, are still barely alive. Lastly, we have Group J, and Portugal has been dominating, and this month was no different. They defeated Slovakia to begin the window, and that result saw them officially qualify for Euro 2024. The Portuguese then manhandled Bosnia 5-0 to grab their 8th straight victory. Second place Slovakia grabbed an important win away in Luxembourg, which gets them just that closer to qualification. Luxembourg could only manage to draw this window, but good news for them. Because Nations League group winners Turkey have directly qualified, it opens a slot to Luxembourg, who were the best 2nd place team in League C. Looking at the table now, there are a couple teams still alive, but realistically, Luxembourg are the only team that have a chance to claim 2nd. If they can beat both Bosnia and Liechtenstein, and Slovakia lose both their games, Luxembourg goes through. That is the only way the Red Lions can make it happen though. Also, quick reminder, because Bosnia won its Nations League group, they are guaranteed a playoff spot. Group A was sealed last window as both Spain and Scotland confirmed their spots into Euro 2024. Spain this month though did go on to win the group after Scotland drew its last 2 games. Group B has been under French control throughout the entire qualification campaign, and although they already qualified, the French weren't satisfied and slaughtered Gibraltar 14-0. This result is now France's largest ever victory. Aside from Le Bleu, there was just one more automatic spot to grab. In October, the Netherlands grabbed a huge away victory in Greece to take full control of their destiny. So come November, with matches against the Whipping Boys and the Whipping Boys, the Dutch made no mistake and confirmed their spot into Euro 2024. Greece do, however, still have a chance to make their first major tournament in a decade through the playoffs. Much like Group B, Group C was fully conquered by the English, who I would say have been flawless, but their manager is Gareth Southgate. The most important storyline, though, was the battle for 2nd between Italy and Ukraine. The window started with Italy 3 points below Ukraine with 2 games to play, while the Ukrainians had just 1 game. Italy's first game in November was against North Macedonia. That's right, Italy was once again playing a crucial qualification match against North Macedonia. Luckily for the Italians, the flashbacks of 2022 didn't come back to haunt them, and they won 5-2.
I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger.
So with both Italy and Ukraine tied on points, with the Azzurri having an advantage on goal difference, 2nd place would be decided by a battle of the ages. A 0-0 draw. But don't worry, Ukrainians, I was spewing out misinformation as if I was the IDF, because you actually do have a chance to qualify in the playoffs. October saw Croatia fumble Euro qualification harder than me with my words whenever I talked to a 10 at the bar.
You know Sonic the Hedgehog?
This set up a super interesting November for Group D. Turkey were officially qualified for the Euros. They will now prepare their PR to get everyone to hype them up again, only to concede 8 goals and crash out in the groups. Don't get too upset, Turks, I'm only just slightly kidding. Anyways, down below Turkey was a dogfight for the last automatic spot between Armenia, Croatia, and Wales. In order for the Armenians to have a chance to qualify, they would have to win out all their remaining matches. and they didn't do that. So it came down to Wales and Croatia. The Welsh were only able to pick out draws from their last 2 games. Croatia, on the other hand, got their shit back together and won their last 2 fixtures to clinch a spot in Germany. Wales will now hope to clinch their own spot in the playoffs. Over in Group E, Albania had a 2-point lead at the top with Czechia, Poland, and Moldova all still in contention. Moldova has been one of the best underdog stories of qualifiers, and after conceding an early goal against Albania, they just kept their hopes alive with a late goal. Sadly though, their Cinderella story came to an end in Czechia after they were pulled apart 3-0. Meanwhile, 3rd place Poland, needing a win in their last game to steal 2nd place, had their attempt spoiled by Czechia's second half equalizer. So Poland will now have to, for a 2nd consecutive time, find a way into a major tournament through the playoffs. This result also meant Albania and Czechia were confirmed for Euro 2024. Albania would go on to win the group in November on goal difference after another draw. Group F, I wasn't really going to say much because Belgium and Austria are already confirmed, but then Sweden had to go and lose 3-0 to Azerbaijan. A box of Swedish fish could play better football. Oh, one other thing, UEFA League D actually has a slot in the playoffs. Estonia was League D's best group winner, so they will have a chance at qualifying for Euro 2024. Yes, that's right, a nation that finished with 1 point in Group F has a chance at qualifying through the playoffs. This system is definitely not flawed whatsoever. Before the last window, Hungary were Group G leaders just 1 point above Serbia, which is kind of funny considering Hungary has defeated Serbia twice, but in all fairness, the Hungarians had a game in hand. Nonetheless, they would go on to extract 4 points out of this window to win the group. Serbia had just 1 game where they drew with Bulgaria, but that was enough to see them through to Euro 2024 as well. And a big honorable mention to Bulgaria. Their quality of football might be in a state worse than Guam, but their resilience in November saw them grab points from both Hungary and Serbia. It's about time we finally got to mention something positive about Bulgaria that wasn't 1994. Group H has been super entertaining to witness as a neutral. Although if you're a fan of any of the top 4, you've probably lost about 10 years of your life expectancy from all the stress of this campaign. For the top 2, it was a very simple task. Win and you're in. NASCAR playoffs type B. Denmark would defeat Slovenia to punch a ticket to Germany, and then Slovenia 3 days later would win and qualify for their first Euro in 24 years. 3rd and 4th place Kazakhstan and Finland have gone through a lot, but it doesn't end for them just yet. Both nations can still qualify through the playoffs. And a quick shout out, by the way, to San Marino. They managed to score against Kazakhstan and Finland this window, meaning they've now scored a goal in 3 consecutive matches. By the way, call back to Estonia being in the playoffs. San Marino has scored more goals than the Estonians in this campaign. Group I saw Romania on a roll as they collected 6 of 6 points in November. First they defeated Israel and then Switzerland. This sees them return to the Euros for the first time since 2016. Switzerland did just enough to claim the other automatic qualification spot with 2 draws against Israel and Kosovo. They also have a lot to thank Romania and Kosovo for in this window. It should be mentioned the Swiss have gone winless since September. It's not even June 2024 yet, and there's already 1 team on fraud watch. Israel had to play 4 matches in 10 days this month, and while they failed to capture 2nd, their hopes are still alive with a berth into the playoffs. Lastly, we have Group J, and Portugal has had a stranglehold on the group, as they've already qualified. Another team that was close to qualification before the beginning of the November window was Slovakia. They completed their quest to Germany with a victory against Iceland. Luxembourg were just tailing behind Slovakia, and while they were no longer able to qualify automatically, they will have a chance in the playoffs. Luxembourg also finished November with 6 of 6 points. And considering this team was 196th in the world just 17 years ago, this is easily one of the best underdog stories of the year. But they're not the only team in this group that will be advancing to the playoffs next year. Insanely enough, 5 of the 6 teams in the group either have qualified or still have a chance to qualify. As we discussed before, despite Bosnia earning just 9 points this campaign, their Nations League group win allows them a second chance. Iceland didn't even win their Nations League group though, but because the Nations League group winners of Serbia and Scotland both qualified automatically, it opens the door for them. So months before the playoffs even kicked off, we witnessed the draws for the main tournament itself. And things were relatively tame. After the 3rd pot was sorted, we saw Germany actually had a chance to not embarrass themselves this year. Maybe. Croatia and Albania drew into the same group. England and Belgium got Mickey Mouse groups. And France, Netherlands, and Austria formed the group of death. But then came the last pot. You might be thinking this must be one of those highlight reels where a certain channel has wacky samba football music, or whatever the the genre is called, while displaying the key moments of the draw. And you're dead wrong. Because in this same video, throughout the first 3 pots, all you heard was normal commentary and announcements. Here's what actually happened during the fourth pot draw.
100. There is some noise here.
Italy.
Basically what happened was that someone placed a phone in the studio with the ringtone set to that. And this prank was pulled off by a relatively known prankster named Jerzo, who had actually done the same thing during an FA Cup draw. Right, so throughout all of these videos, we've teased the playoffs, but now we finally get to actually talk about how the playoffs work. It's pretty simple. You have 3 different paths: Path A, Path B, and Path C. Each path will have 4 teams. These teams will play a semi and potentially a final if they advance out of the semis, and the winners of each semi will go on to qualify for Euro 2024. So without further ado, let's just quickly introduce the paths. In Path A, we have Poland versus Estonia and Wales versus Finland. The final will either be played in Wales or Finland. Poland, Wales, and Finland have all made appearances in the Euros. Finland in particular, though, has only made 1. And obviously, Estonia has never qualified for the Euros. Over in Path C, you got Israel versus Iceland and Bosnia versus Ukraine. The final will be either in Bosnia or Ukraine. Israel and Bosnia will be seeking out their first ever appearances at a European Championship, while Iceland will hope to return after missing out on 2020. Ukraine have qualified for the last 3 Euros and will hope to keep that streak alive. The most entertaining path, in my personal opinion though, is Path C, because you have Georgia versus Luxembourg and Greece versus Kazakhstan. The final will be either in Georgia or Luxembourg. Georgia, Luxembourg, and Kazakhstan have never qualified for the Euros, while Greece is hoping to end a 12-year drought. Now, I will go over the groups at some point, probably after the playoffs, but I do want to mention just this one thing. If Greece are able to advance out of Path C, they will be put in a group with Turkey. Euro 2024, it's just the gift that keeps on giving. The gift in question: geopolitical warfare. And we'll start with Path A. Wales' relatively young core has seemingly done well in progressing past the need for Gareth Bale as they lit up Finland at home 4-1. On the other side of the bracket, Poland annihilated Estonia 5-1. Even if it was Estonia, who I might add scored less goals than San Marino, Poland actually produced a really good performance. So the first path would be decided between Wales and Poland in Cardiff. Wales was the more aggressive team and looked the most dangerous, but Wojciech Szczesny was simply unbeatable on the night. The game went on into extra time, and with the Welsh energy diminishing, Poland flipped the switch and started hounding their opponents. But it was to no avail, and with 120 minutes complete, this would be decided by a penalty shootout. To start, Robert Lewandowski and Ben Davies converted their team's first attempts. Next, Sebastian Szymanski scores. Then Kiefer Moore. The third set of penalties from both nations were flawless as well. 22-year-old Nikola Zalewski then steps up and scores, as does Nico Williams. Now onto the fifth set, substitute Krzysztof Piatek effortlessly scores. Daniel James now has to score to keep Wales alive, and it's saved by Szczesny, meaning Poland go on to win and become your first team going to Euro 2024 through the playoffs. Over in Path B, Bosnia and Ukraine battled it out on a pitch Meading Stadium would be very proud of. On paper, Ukraine were favorites, but Bosnia had other ideas and took the lead in the 56th minute through a Ukraine own goal. Bosnia had the opportunity to close up shop in the 81st minute but failed to convert, and they rued that chance pretty much immediately. And then just 3 minutes later, informed Girona striker Artem Dovbyk completes the turnaround to send Ukraine to the final of Path B. Next, we go to Poland for Iceland versus Israel.
Ajaba!
So now we had the final of Path B set between Ukraine and Iceland in a neutral venue. And Albert Gudmundsson, who scored a hat-trick in the last game, unleashed a firecracker to shock Ukraine early on. Ukraine were not going to let 2022 happen again, however, as they found an equalizer in the 52nd minute. Then the turnaround was completed once more after Mikhailo Mudryk drove one into the corner in the 84th minute. Ukraine go on to win 2-1 and qualify for Euro 2024. On to Path C, and after having away fans create some of the best noise and luring in a lot of football hipsters with numerous impressive upsets, Kazakhstan would give back to their fans new and old by conceding 4 goals in the first half against Greece.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Greece went on to win 5-0 and now had the opportunity to qualify for a major tournament for the first time in a decade. That's right, World Cup 2014 was almost a decade ago. You are getting old. There are professional players younger than you. You are starting to not understand what the young generation is even saying anymore. You ask yourself, was a phantom tap. Next was Georgia versus Luxembourg, and even though the Georgians would be without Kvaradona for the semis, they still managed to take the lead in the 40th minute. However, Luxembourg, knowing they weren't playing Portugal, actually fought back and scored through Gerson Rodriguez. But not so fast, says VAR, who calls back the play due to a foul just 40 seconds prior. Not only is the goal called off, but a defender for Luxembourg is also sent off. 10 minutes later, Budu Zivzivadze grabs his second and Georgia advanced to the final. And so, the Path C final was now set. Would Georgia qualify for their first ever major tournament, or would the United Nations have to be very concerned about what would be happening in Germany, specifically Dortmund, in June? Both teams were pretty solid in the back, and nothing could really separate the two in 90 minutes. However, into extra time, the game started to open up more. Greece's best chance came from Mavropanos, whose header nailed the crossbar, and Georgia nearly stole the game in the 119th minute. But still, nothing could separate the two, which means we were going to penalties for a second time that night. Up came Georgi Kokorashvili, and he converts. Tassos Bakasetas for Greece next, and it's saved. Zuriko Davitashvili then follows up and scores. Advantage Georgia. Next was Georgios Masouras to keep Greece alive, and he does just that. Georgia's Mikatadze. There's a lot of Georges here, man. Anyways, he misses completely. Andreas Boukoulakis then converts for Greece, and we're back level in the shootout. Lasha Devali in Georgia's fourth attempt does a good job not collapsing under pressure. Georgios Giacomakis? Not so much. And with that miss, Nika Keveskiri had the opportunity to make history for his nation, and he does just that. The fans in Tbilisi stormed the pitch in absolute jubilation as Georgia will be in Euro 2024 this summer. So here are your groups for Euro 2024. In Group A, we have host Germany, Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland. For Germany, they're favorites to win this group as they are hosts, and also now they have Julian Nagelsmann, who's just producing miracles over there. Outside of that, it's going to be very interesting to see who gets the runners-up spot between Scotland, Hungary, and Switzerland. Scotland didn't perform that well in the last Euros, Switzerland made it to the quarterfinals, and Hungary usually do quite well in the Euros. They're just quite unlucky when it comes to which group they're drawn into. Group B is one of the more exciting groups, as we have Spain, Croatia, Albania, and reigning champions Italy. Spain and Croatia have played against each other before the Euros, actually in the last Euros, in the last 16, and Italy and Spain played against each other in the semis of Euro 2020. Albania returned for the first time since 2016, so it'll be interesting to see how they'll do. Group C has Slovenia, Denmark, Serbia, and England. England fell in penalties last time against Italy, so they finished runners-up. They hope to improve that just by one position this time around. Speaking of teams that did really well in Euro 2020, Denmark was exceptional, reaching all the way to the semis. And for Slovenia and Serbia, this is their first appearance in the Euros since 2000. Group D brings us another group of death. We have France, Austria, Netherlands, and Poland. France, despite being world champions, underwhelmed in the last Euros, being eliminated by Switzerland in the quarters. The Netherlands were even more underwhelming as they lost to Czechia in the last 16. Another team that lost in the last 16 is Austria. That said though, it was against the reigning champions, and this time around, I'd keep an eye on them as they've been doing really well as of late. We'll talk about that more in the preview though. And finally, Poland, they got eliminated in the groups last time. They'll hope to improve upon that, but it's going to be very difficult. Over in Group E, you have Belgium, Slovakia, Romania, and Ukraine. Belgium last time out were eliminated by Italy in the quarterfinals. Slovakia last time out were eliminated in the groups. Ukraine in the last Euros made it all the way to the quarterfinals after stunning Sweden, and Romania returned for the first time since 2016. And lastly, we have Group F with Turkey, Georgia, Portugal, and Czechia. Portugal entered this tournament as arguably one of the favorites. They have a very strong squad. Turkey, the infamous dark horses of 2016 and 2020, hope this time around their fortunes actually improve. And as we've mentioned before, Czechia made it to the quarterfinals after beating the Netherlands. And finally, we have Georgia, the newcomers. This is the first time they have appeared ever in an international tournament. Whether that title helps them or not, we'll just have to see. But with the groups now all set, who do you think is going to win Euro 2024?